Your city, your province, your viewpoint. This is Radio NL and the Jim Harrison Show.
And good morning once again. Welcome to our Thursday edition. The film is called A Stroke of Hope. It's still in progress, still being put together. The Bryce Kowalski story. It's a story of a Kamloops man and his family's experience with stroke. So our guests this morning include Bryce Kowalski, his father Ted Kowalski, and Peter Cameron Inglis from Mastermind Studios. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Hopefully can you hear me, Peter? All right, we'll get that remedied in a moment. This story starts in 2011 as Bryce, who was a certified St. John's ambulance first aid attendant with plenty of training and more than 1,000 hours of first aid experience, suffered a stroke. Bryce, if you can hear me, despite the training you had, I gather that even you didn't really recognize the symptoms.
Well, I did. I went and I went back to work. I went to work. I was working nights at that time, and I went and when it happened, I was just going over through my head what all the symptoms that were taught in St. John's Ambulance that go through my speech, go through what my feeling is and what it was, trying to figure out what it would be, if it was a stroke, if it was a heart attack, what it was doing.
Bryce, this was the second stroke. You suffered a second stroke, I gather, once you got to hospital, 24 hours later, and then you were rushed to hospital. What happened then?
Well, I was at Starbucks with my girlfriend at the time, and then we decided to go drive straight to the hospital, and so I was driving, and I drove myself straight to the hospital, and sat in the hospital for quite a while in ER, waiting for them to call me in.
Now, the way I understand it, prior to these strokes, in fact, you had a stroke during surgery as well, but prior to that, you had 27 different surgeries to help you walk, speak, and do things that most of us take for granted. Ted, tell us the story about that. What happened before the strokes?
Well, Bryce has had a tremendous amount of adversity that he's had to go.
No, can you hear me?
To overcome, and he's had to go through a lot of surgeries for different things that he's had, and we just don't have enough time to even touch on them. But other than that, he was holding down a full-time job like anybody else, and then this happened, and it gets to be quite a shocker when you get a phone call saying that your son has just been diagnosed with a major brain aneurysm. So, and then winds up getting flown down to Vancouver. So it's a shocker.
And during Bryce's time in hospital when he was being treated for a stroke, he suffered a second stroke during complex brain surgery and then a third?
Yes, he was in hospital for 10 days in Vancouver. They flew him down to Vancouver in the middle of the night. And we were told when we got to Vancouver that they had to have a full team ready for this, do this bypass surgery on the aneurysm, because it was a major aneurysm. If it broke, he was done. And so he was in a holding pattern for 10 days. And the doctor told us that there's a strong likelihood that he is going to have a stroke during surgery because his blood vessels were paper thin, and the type of surgery that they were doing, there was a good chance that he would have a stroke. and then you don't. All of the things are going through your mind. You don't know what is the end result going to be. What's your son going to be like when he comes out of surgery? So it's very traumatic.
Yeah, you can still feel the or hear the emotion in your voice as well. Tremendously long road for recovery, not only for Bryce but for the family as well. And Peter Cameron Inglis is with us in studio. And Peter, the decision to use this, I guess you didn't start out to make a documentary, but the decision was to film this whole process of recovery and use that as a tool. Who had that idea?
Well, actually, we started out, it was actually, I was helping a very dear friend of mine, Michael Cohen, who happens to be a friend of Bryce's and Bryce's therapist, and working with him for his doctoral thesis and changing pen and paper to video camera in order to document for Bryce himself a therapeutic approach, which we were calling interactive narrative therapy. And as we were helping make this happen about a year and a half ago, as Bryce was going through recovery, this incredible story started to unfold, and Bryce started talking about wanting to reach out and help more people, and how people just don't want to talk about the stroke. They want to talk about the recovery process in the future, or beyond the recovery process, and focus on the future and not stroke itself and what they've gone through. But he wanted those answers when he was going through it, and he wanted to be able to provide those to other people. And then later in the process, earlier this year, I was absolutely so appreciative when Bryce's family came in, quite as a surprise to them, and they had no idea what was going on, and that we were even going through this with Bryce. And they put themselves out there in a very vulnerable way, and shared their experiences on camera. And they only found out a few minutes before we rolled, so they had no idea that any of this had gone on. But they still so greatly shared of themselves and what they had gone through that it makes just such an incredible story.
Bryce, the recovery was about a year and a half, and it was really arduous. And how will this story on film help others understand and deal with this?
Well, my hope is that now that I'm telling this, is that that people know that there's somebody else out there that has had a stroke, that has had the same problems I went through, and I have an idea what my parents and my family, my sister and stuff, and everybody involved with me went through when I was going through all those surgeries, all those the strokes and stuff. So I wanna make sure that everybody out there knows that, well, there is somebody else out there. There is information out there that you can get a hold of.
I understand you recovered really well. In fact, you recovered to the point you were able to get on a motorcycle a few weeks ago. I understand that it didn't turn out very well.
Yeah, that's right.
What happened there? I understand you had an accident and back in the hospital and more surgery.
Yeah, I just know what my family has told me, because I don't remember the accident at all. But I left work. I know I left work because I work at the New Life Mission and as a support worker, and I left work, and I was driving down work, and I did the shoulder check and ended up.
Ted, from your perspective, was that shocking? I mean, you've gone through all this with Bryce so far, so many surgeries, so much emotion, and then to get involved in another accident. I gather you've laid down the law: no more motorcycles.
Well, you can only say so much. That's our hope. Accidents happen, and he didn't do anything wrong. It's just something that happened, and he wound up having another major surgery. So hopefully he won't hit the 30 surgeries mark because he's just under that now. So, but it does get a little trying when you're used to seeing your son in a hospital bed and you're looking down on him, holding his hand and talking to him.
That's right. We should have given you fellows more time for this story, but we're running out of time. But I did want to ask Peter Cameron Inglis one further thing. Where can people get a sense of this, and how can they contribute to completing the cost of this film?
Well, thanks for asking, Jim. We've still got quite a ways to go on finishing off the film, but we have finished a full trailer, an 8-minute trailer, which will give people a really good sense of the story. And we've set up an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign. What we'd invite people to do, as of this morning, we've put links on the homepage of our website at mastermindstudios.ca. And right at the top of the page, they can follow the link and watch the trailer and learn more and follow along as the story progresses.
The film is called A Stroke of Hope, described as a gripping and emotional story, one that's intended to provide not only insight, but to save lives and help other stroke victims cope and recover. Our thanks this morning to Bryce Kowalski, his father Ted, and from Mastermind Studios, Peter Cameron Inglis. Thanks so much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.